I'd written what I felt was going to be an interesting movie about a group of illegal miners who get trapped underground in a network of mine shafts and caves. So, where exactly was I going to shoot this? I guess that's the story I'm here to tell.
Kunhu kwatiri kuenda kwako tinofanira mari zvelevu rekuti boys mukaona kuti tokona kutosiya kana kukorokoza kwatiri kuitwa.
Saka boys mimi munotipinza mine yakabandonwa ikuonekwa zvipoko magorototo what boys
Hayi handibhilieve ani nazvo. Ini madhira yanditolava kuona kwatiri godhi yacho ishoma. Iri shoma kudaro yaunenge wawana unona kutemwa wofira mafufu. Zvatawana panapa ngatishane nazvo. Godhitoto sitori sina basa apa.
Bako is the story of four friends, artisanal miners, as it were.
amanaga chigweja ichi boys
Tired of the poverty they live in, decide to search for a legendary hoard of gold in a possibly haunted but definitely abandoned mine.
Then mine inonzi yakarana for a year zvavharana.
inda
Unongoziya ka boys, tongoro tunyaya tumwe tuya.
sha taura kuti mine yakavhara sei.
Iwe
A cave-in occurs and they're trapped, and their only way out is to navigate the maze of mine shafts and caverns. That's the story on like a very basic level. Pre-production on Bako began as a fairly uneventful process. Putting together cast and crew was fairly standard. The problems began when we started looking for locations. My producers, Kuda and Kanenga, were working on Intervinku. It's a TV series set in a mining town, which they were also shooting in a mining town. So I figured for anything mining related, we're sorted. And for the most part, we were. But the movie is called Bako, and a good chunk of it is set in a cave. Ask any Zimbabwean if they know any caves, and they'll most likely say Chinoe Caves. It's the most famous cave system we have in our country, and was also my first thought, until I found out just how much red tape is involved. I'd rather not get into specifics, but let's just say government offices are not always the most fun place to visit as a filmmaker. Around this time, I was about 2 or so years into fooling around with filming on green screens and compositing in Adobe After Effects, so I figured we could try that out. I quickly realized though that filming an entire movie on a green screen with not much experience would result in me and the team being the laughing stock of the film industry. So I settled on a compromise. I'd build sets for close-ups and then on wide shots use the green screen, with the set being extended in post-production. I figured what I needed for close-ups would be like a rock face or surface. So I turned to every indie filmmaker's favorite resource for help, YouTube. This is a place where no matter how specific the problem you have, there's always some Indian dude with a tutorial on how to solve it. Or so I thought. Man, my journey was anything but easy. First, I had to figure out the correct search terms. It turns out that if you type how to make a rock face, The results you get are a lot of guys trying to lift up their one eyebrow like The Rock. I came across a lot of tutorials from landscape people and like gardeners, which involved making fake rocks and maybe even rock faces, but they all involved using cement or concrete. So that was completely out of the question for me. Cement is too heavy, too expensive, and too permanent. So I left landscaping YouTube and refined my search using words like filmmaking or set design. And I found a lot of tutorials on how to make fake rock surfaces with styrofoam. And again, this wouldn't work for me. Too expensive. This was just after, like, in Zim we had banned styrofoam containers for food. So I guess it just wasn't being sold as much anymore. And going out and buying vast amounts of the styrofoam that was available and the necessary paint to sell the illusion of a rock, it just wasn't in the budget. But something kept telling me that paper mache would work, or at least some sort of version of paper mache. I modified the paper mache idea, and instead of using strips of paper, I figured I'd use old newspapers, like the whole sheet. I decided I'd document the whole process of me developing this rock face. It was for a YouTube channel that later on got abandoned. But part of it was just I needed a record to figure out how I got to the end result. The last thing you need is to achieve something but not know your exact method of arriving at the finished product. So what I have here is some corn flour. So the plan is I'm going to cook this up and form a paste, and then we'll stick some papers together, mold a rock face and paint it. So bear in mind here that I've got absolutely no idea what I'm doing. I'm just sort of like making this up as I go. So I've put about a cup, 1 cup of corn flour, and now I'm going to add maybe like 2 cups of water. So we're just going to take some old papers, magazines in this case, but these are weird old magazines that were printed on paper that's almost like newsprint, so it's not exactly glossy, it's not exactly newsprint, it's something in between. So what we'll do is we're going to lay all of that stuff over this junk that I've got here. That should give, you know, some contours, or this will allow me to shape my fake rocks as I'm going. I think I may have messed up my corn flour mixture and gotten it a little bit too thick. I would have preferred it to be thinner than this. And also, I don't think I wanted those lumps. See those lumps there? Grab that, smear it all over. Right, so I'm going to leave that to dry. I don't know how long it's going to take to dry, but I guess I'll just keep on checking up on it maybe every hour or something, and then we'll see how it goes. So as you can see, I was working outdoors, and what happened is the weather kind of changed on me, and it took a while for this stuff to dry up. This stuff is basically dry now. I mean, what you want is a sound like this. Okay, that didn't go so well. But yeah. Now it's time to paint, and what I've got here is I've got some white, I don't know, it's like, so this right here, this is the white paint, and then these are tinters. So I've got like a red oxide, a dark brown, and a black. I've got my paintbrush here. Okay, so that's the first coat done, and I won't lie, that's not really how I expected this color to come out, but you know, this is an experiment after all, so what did I expect? So that's how it looks like close up. So after this coat is dried, I'm going to do a bit more details. Did another coat with like a darker color for inside those weird grooves there. Not sure how it's all gonna work out, but I'm hoping that these little bits of contrast with like the darker brown and the light brown, they'll give some dimensionality to this shape. I think my last coat, second from last. Right now I want to do something that's a bit more red oxide, and then after I do the red oxide, I think I'll just go over it with like a very pale white, almost gray, or rather gray, almost white tint. I don't know, I'll see how it goes. Look at the state of my hands. It's terrible. I mean, this brush, look at this mess behind me. So you want to make sure you do this, some way you won't create a mess. Okay, so the things had some time to dry now, and I think what's just left is now for me to do some camera tests, and then we'll see how it looks. It might work, it might not work. Honestly, I think it came out pretty well. I'll admit the screen test with the green screen was a bit rough. But that was also just because I did it in front of a green screen, like 2 minutes, with no lights, not much setup, and with my 10-year-old DSLR. I knew with more time and planning we could pull off a convincing cave interior. Armed with a rock face prototype and a recorded method of how to produce it, we decided we'd shoot in Mashawa. The mineshaft locations would be readily available, and there'd be some studio space for us to build our small pieces of set. The crew and I traveled to Mashawa to get work started. We visited all our locations so we could get an idea of what we'd have to match our special effects with. And the location visits were quite fun. When we all had a look at the studio space available for us to use, an idea started creeping in. Why not scrap the dodgy green screen idea and just build a massive set? If we need a tunnel, we build it. If we need a big ass rock face, we build it. The space was there. I was finally convinced when it was pointed out to me that the very space we were in had been a clinic/hospital in Intabengu, and I honestly didn't even tell the difference. Over the next week or two, we mixed glue and stuck sections, waited for it to dry. We mixed glue and stuck sections. We waited for it to dry, mixed more glue, added more layers, waited for that to dry, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. At some point, the glue ran out because now we're building a set bigger than the one originally planned. And so we went back to my corn flour or cornstarch recipe from when I made the prototype. And when that ran out, we went with regular flour. Because this set was going to be big. We did this for about a week and a half, let's just call it 2 weeks of set building. And the idea was when the actors arrive, they would just find the set complete. So we also did a lot of painting. I think the actors arrived while we're in the middle of painting the set. We'd finally erected all the rock walls that we needed, and you could sort of feel now you could like get into the world of Bako.
Right, Magita.
Hello. Which man?
Yeah, no, the paint makes such a huge difference in Lara.
And I guess the next stage after that was doing screen tests.
Yeah, action.
The lighting style that I had initially discussed with my DOP, John Wilson, was that the majority of the light would come from the characters' headlamps. They'd be wearing headlamps like most miners do. The idea was that the headlamps would provide most of the light in the film, and any extra light that we use would be used to augment the headlamps. So the headlamps would be like the motivation for any lighting that we did.
My room light. Room light off.
But it didn't really work out too well. It turned out to be way too dark. So we ended up installing some overhead lights, but we massively diffused that just to bring up like the overall brightness in the room. And then we'd use our headlamps specifically more as like spotlights. The toughest part of the set build was when we used actual soil on the floor, because we had to get that outside and then bring it into the studio. And here's where it gets tricky. To go from outside into the studio, there was a very steep flight of steps. And imagine going up a flight of steps over and over again with like a sack full of soil and rocks. Yeah, it was crazy. It was highly experimental. I'd say the whole process was a fun learning experience for me, because one thing I love to do with every production that I work on, I like to try something new or learn something new. And in this case, building a cave set was definitely something I'd never done before. Would I do it again? Yeah, of course. If there's a Bako 2 or a sequel to Bako, then yeah, definitely I'd want to build another set, but obviously bigger this time. Maybe even fool around with flooding it with water, you know, like Gladiator 2, who knows? I think what the future holds for me is I'd like to learn a bit of carpentry, a bit of building, a bit of welding, so that I can build more and more elaborate sets and props in any future productions.
Spinning. Bako, scene 6B, shot 1, take 1.
A fun exercise to do is when watching Bako, trying to determine what's part of the set that was constructed and what's a real rock face or a real cave.